Yeah. Someone got gun on that dirt. Yeah. Yo, if I were podcasting, it would be insane. Knowledge blowing like the sweetest rain. Professor Bear on the mic, spreading wisdom wide. The best thoughts, that's my pride, can't hide.
With the voices in your ear, changing the game.
If I rule podcasting, every thought we'd ignite. In a world of chatter, we'll just walk in the fight. With Professor Bear, we're climbing to new heights. A best thoughts podcast, shining bright in the night. Topics from the heart, never sounding the same. Got laughs and debates, never dull or bland. From culture to tech, take you by the hand. Join the ride with us, feel the vibe expand. With every episode, we shine that beginnings on the cusp. Not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul. Tune in, don't miss what we got to share. If I rule podcasting, I spread the love everywhere.
What's going on, people? How are y'all doing today?
Living the dream, brother. Living the dream. Isn't it great to be alive on a Monday afternoon to talk some wrestling?
It is, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all could understand what type of Monday this has been for myself and my guest, this has been, look, yeah, if you watch me and know Professor doesn't hide anything. When I screw up, I screw up. I don't mind being human. But this has been one interesting Monday that I fell asleep and my buddy had to call and wake me up, and I had my guests waiting on me. I come running in my studio, getting ready. Then they had camera problems. then the camera problem. We get that straight. Then one of the guys can't get in because of, I'm not gonna name the one I'm using, but it's cheap and it wouldn't let them in. So, but after all that is said and done, we are here. We're here to talk wrestling, and thank you for coming on, guys.
No, we appreciate the opportunity for sure.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
So, what I always
Oh, no, thank you for having us.
Go ahead.
I was just saying thank you for having us.
This is going to be one of those interviews, and that's all right. I love it. So, what I always do, I always ask the question of my guests is, how did y'all get into wrestling?
Rip, who wants to go first? You want to go first? You want me to go first? Rock, paper, scissors.
Either or, I don't care. You call the shots, baby. You let me know if you want me to go first.
I just come in for the hot tag, my guy. You do all the other
I'll
shit.
go first. Why not? So, I got you. Typical stereotype story. I was a little kid in New York, and my stepdad used to put on wrestling all the time. And I think we were watching WCW Nitro, and Scott Hall came out, and he had a mask on, and everybody thought it was Sting, and then he took the mask off, and it wasn't Sting, and it was Scott Hall. And to me, that was just one of the coolest things ever for me. And that kind of sparked it. From there on, I wanted say up until about the age of 12, and I don't care. I'm not ashamed to say this. To the age of 12, I walked around in underwears as often as possible.
You still do.
I would put on my church socks as high as I could, and those are my wrestling boots. And yeah, I started training at 16, and come full circle. Scott Hall was one of my trainers. Rest in peace. And yeah, so that's what got me. That's the long story short of how I grew to love professional wrestling and how I ended up doing so. I mean, recently, actually, me and my parents are pastors, and so we had a conversation recently about why I wrestle and how I got into it. And I just I look at my dad. He's raised me since I was 5, so I call him dad. I started looking at him real serious and like almost like gimmick, one of those in ring gimmick looks that you give your opponent, that stare down. And I'm like, you know what? You know whose fault it is? It's his fault right there. He's the one who used to tell me that he was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the one. And he had that aha moment and he just started laughing uncontrollably. So it was a good moment. But yeah, Dravo, hot tag.
Hot
Why
tag.
you dress in
So,
stretchy pants?
no stretchy pants today. I in my comfy tight jeans. Uh,
Nice.
my story is a little bit different. Growing up, I've always had family in the business. My two uncles who originally started my training, Ronnie and Donnie Harris, the Harris brothers.
Oh,
Later on, the DOA, DOD. That.
so let me stop you real quick, and I don't mean to, but I just
Mhm.
have to ask this question.
What's that?
Them being your uncles, I've followed their career for years, big fan.
Hmm.
But the one thing that got really controversial about them at one point, and I always assumed this was fake. They had Nazi tattoos.
So it's funny you bring that up because that was kind of misconstrued because the Nazi swastika that my uncle Ronnie had on it
Uh-huh.
wasn't the Nazi swastika. It was actually the Hindu symbol for peace. So you know how the Nazi symbols like turn at a 45.
Right, right.
When you turn it up and down, that is the Hindu symbol of peace, and he's into that religion. So he's always had that on him. The SS for my uncle Donnie was more or less a late drunk night with his brother Brian Lee, and he did get that covered up, and that's why whenever you see him from like '96 on, Vince wrote his ass about it to the point that he couldn't show it on TV. So that was just a bad mistake. Those two guys are two of the most humble, very religious men that you will ever meet. Like to the point it truth be told, it kind of makes me sick sometimes because you can't get a word in edgewise without Jesus or God getting into it. You know, Rip can vouch for that, you know, with his parents being pastors. But it's one that was misconstrued, and then the other one was just a very bad decision that was pretty quickly covered up.
And like I said, now I'm a big wrestling fan. I
Mhm,
go back to the late '70s knowing wrestling,
mhm.
but again, never once thought of them being anything but nice. But seeing the symbol, and especially in the '90s, we all had things were a lot different. So you could have something
Yep.
you may not agree with, but you didn't condemn people until
No,
you talk to
no.
them.
And
And
if you notice, all that stuff really kind of came up in like the late 2010s when everybody was starting to get real entitled to their opinions. As long as your
and
opinion matters, you know, that's it.
exactly.
But by then, you know, they went and found God. They are now producers of their own Christian record label. You know, my uncle Donnie, the one that had the SS on him, he has two daughter-in-laws that are black. So it's not like, you know, he ever lived the gimmick. It was just one of those things where it was misconstrued and misunderstood.
No, and again, like I said, I always liked them. I followed them to the point where they were in TNA. But
Yep.
sorry to interrupt, but it was one of those thoughts. If I didn't ask, I'm old. I'm 52. Man, you see, fall asleep, take naps. If I don't get it in, I ain't gonna
Shut
remember
up,
it.
Dave.
So go ahead and finish telling your story. I
It's
apologize.
all good. It's all good. So it really started with, I've always had wrestling around in some way, shape, or form, whether it's going to shows to see them, whether it's my grandmother taking me to the shows at the old Jacksonville, Florida Coliseum, what have you. But what really started it is when TNA actually moved from Nashville to Orlando. And at the time, I was living with them up in Nashville because as a child, I did some stuff I wasn't too proud of, and I had to get out of town to kind of, reset myself. So we moved from Nashville to Orlando, and I started going to the TNA tapings. My first experience ever doing anything in wrestling is when I was sitting at ringside. I was 14, and this is like prime 2004, 2005 Impact Zone, just like history, right? And BG James, who at the time, and he'll go out and say it, had a real bad drug issue.
Yes.
So he saw some enhancement talent and wanted to, work on a couple things. And he asked me to come up. And I'm a 14-year-old kid. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to go do it anyway, right? I'm not trained to take anything, but whatever. So he gives me his finish, the pump handle drop, and he says I sold it. I told him that I sold it. I didn't sell that shit. That hurt like hell, right? But I sold it, and I got out and I powdered, and he immediately went to Terry Taylor that was there and was asking who I was. He didn't know who I was, so he had to go get security, which at the time was my Uncle Donnie. Donnie told him who I was and freaked the hell out just because I took a bump, underage kid, no contract, no nothing, right? So he's like, nope, go sit up there, don't move, you do nothing. So that was my first ever take. And from there, I got bit by the bug. I aggravated the hell out of him until I moved back when I was 16 back to Jacksonville, Florida. By that time, I was already looking into independent shows. I was going to every independent show that you could. Street team, set up, tear down, whatever I could do to be around the guys to just try to earn an opportunity. And when I finally turned 17, the trainer down in Stark, Ghetto Superstar, Big Eclipse, and Mr. Saturday Night, David Rogers, finally gave me an opportunity to go and just start the beginner class. And I did it, and it sucked a lot. But I trained with them for about a year and a half, and then from there it was just going off. February 2010 is when I had my first official match, and I've never looked back.
Oh, that's very interesting. So let me ask, how did y'all meet and become so cool?
So
Brothel.
that we don't tell that story, really. Shut up. No, what happened was I just got brought into a company to help with some audio issues that they were having. They didn't have a guy to run audio properly, and I was still recuperating from a neck injury. I broke my neck in 2019, so I wasn't cleared to get back in the ring or anything, but I still wanted to help out. And this new company was starting up called LCCW. And it just started in a group chat where they were needing a tag team. And I just got cleared. This was a couple months afterwards. But I met him beforehand, met his wife, seemed cool, exchanged numbers, never really talked after that. But my third running mate, Dark Chords, which is back here smoking the hopium right now, looking like a bitch, messaged me, or I messaged him. We messaged each other, like, dude, what if this is like a chance for us to jump on something? Like, me and him instantly clicked. And then we threw our name in the hat. 5 minutes later, like, nope, we found somebody else. Cool, whatever. And then Rip chimed in, is like, yo, you need to use those two guys, and I'll be included, and we'll call ourselves the Forbidden Kingdom, or whatever we're going to fucking be called. And it just stuck. Forbidden Kingdoms has been stuck for, 4 years, 5 years now?
Cheers.
Yeah, 5 years. Damn,
So,
it's been 5 years. Holy shit,
Yeah, buddy.
time
so
flies.
5 years of turning it up. And
Yeah,
this is gonna be a weird question, but what is the thing that irritates you most about each other?
I mean, you want me to be brutally honest?
Of course.
Uh, Honestly, it's just the fact that we live so far away from each other that we don't get to get together like we want to.
Right.
So anytime there's a booking, we're always trying to get each other on that booking so we can be around each other as much as possible. Because when it comes to Rip and with Dark, it's one of those instant connections where I've always had an issue trusting people. I've also always had an issue feeling safe around people, and them two guys, from the moment we met, from the moment we clicked, it was just that inner circle. You know what I mean? And when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to podcasting, and both these guys can vouch for it. I never take anything with a me thing. It's always a we thing because I want all of us to succeed. I want all of us to be able to go to the next step. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a year ago, Dark Horse decided to step away, but in doing so, we still keep him on. For anything and everything that we can include him in. When his schedule warrants it. He's a very busy man outside of pro wrestling, but we always have each other in mind, and it's just aggravating, for Rip to be 3.5 hours away, and I can't just jump in my car one random Saturday and jump down there because we all have families, we all have responsibilities, we all have work, stuff like that.
Right.
So that honestly, that'd be the most aggravating thing for me.
Okay. Rick, what about you?
Honestly, I second that. Realistically, like to say that in the 5 years that we've been teaming, to say that we've ever had any indifferences, um, would be completely false. The only time we've ever had any moments of tension is when we've tried to bring other people into the group that didn't work out. There's been a couple of females that we tried to bring in, and yes, I will raise the flag. They have always been my fault. It has always been my great idea of let's bring in so and so hasn't worked out.
But to be
Um,
but to be fair, dude,
so that's
like
been
it
the
always made
only.
sense when you brought something up like that. It wasn't just like randomly, hey, we should bring A and B into this just because we want to. Like, no, it always made sense either to a storyline or to a location why we would do that.
Well, and
Yeah.
and
So I was trying to be strategic with it, but what were you saying?
well, what I was gonna say is sometimes you have a a real bond, and no matter how much you try to bring people in, it just is not gonna work because of your bond your with your brother. You try, but not everybody's gonna have that, and that's not your fault. That's just the way it is with bonds.
No, he's got a point, Rip.
Yeah. And, I mean, at the same time though, just in case so they watch this, we love all of the ones that we've tried to bring in. Um, that
Except
includes you,
Wolfie.
James
Fuck
Wolf.
Wolfie. Fuck him.
Um,
I kid. I love you, Wolfie.
Um, but it was always something as far as it was always something typically as far as them not being able to travel, them not having dependable transportation. And then with Wolf, it was something where he wanted to branch off and do his own thing with his own team. And
Hmm.
they're still together. I think it's been 3 years now that they are doing it. And recently we brought in a fourth member, and he has meshed in like like brick with cement. His he goes by Psycho.
Yep.
Um, and then he's got his counterpart, Lady J. Um, and they're based out of Georgia, so we're running it up in Georgia Old School Championship Wrestling. But
Shout
yeah,
out.
TFK has run Alabama, Georgia, all of Florida. And for the most part, the reason why they haven't worked out has been because of them not having dependable transportation. And with all of us living so spread out,
Yep.
it definitely is something where with wrestling you're going to travel. You're going to have to put some rubber to the pavement and hit the road if you want exposure, if you want to, get your name out there.
Yep.
And that's part of the big reasons why we've been so successful is that we've never said no to any of it. But yeah, besides trying to bring others in, there's never been any really serious conversations where we're like, what are we doing?
Right.
We love each other. We trust each other. It's genuine brotherhood. And even with to piggyback off of what Dravyn was saying, even with Dark Courts hanging it up, it's still something where till death do us part. Like he's an OG, and if it ever got to the point where we found ourselves doing something bigger than what we're doing, it definitely would be something that we would still try to get him to dust off the boots at least one last time, and at least be a part of that for some capacity.
Right.
But it's never something where I honestly could say I see brothers for life. I don't ever see us ever coming to a point where we're not in communication, even outside of pro wrestling. And so, yeah, as far as the distance, that's realistically the only thing that we could say has been any form of an issue
Yeah. Yeah.
with
And
us as a team.
I'll even say this: like our bond is so deep with the three of us. Like there's not a day that goes by where I don't talk to Dark, where I don't talk to Rip. Like my day is incomplete unless I know that they're good, that they're okay. If they're not good, is it something I can do other than just being there for them? You know what I mean? Like there was a time. I'll speak personally. At the beginning of the year, where I was going through some challenges, and the two guys that were front and center that dropped everything was Dark and it was Rip. So like that brotherhood is more than just us getting in a car or us meeting in a locker room or us meeting at a Waffle House at 2:00 in the morning with a Tourette's waitress. It's so much more than that. Like it's one of those things where
True story.
what.
The Tourette's waitress.
Oh, there's a whole story on that. We'll get into that later, though.
True story.
Look, let me emphasize.
Let's talk about my future wife.
Hey,
Which
I was
one?
gonna say, I got a niece that works at Waffle House, so tread lightly.
Look, I'm never going to diss Waffle House, all right? Like, I promise you, they get about 15 to 20% of my paycheck every week. Every week. There's 2 nights a week that I go to Waffle House, all right? So I will never bash them. Yeah,
it was a joke. Well,
it's
no,
all good. It's all good.
I'm about to say now, my niece used to work at Waffle House, so
Now, I will say this, and Rip, you can give your opinion on this. When Dark did hang up the boots, there was a little bit of tension there because we didn't know whether we wanted to continue on with TFK, if we wanted to try something different, if we did want to like bring in a fourth member, so to speak.
right.
So we did try to, put TFK to rest, and we tried our own thing. It's like when Taker went from the Ministry to the American Badass thing, and we kind of like hung up the spooky ookie, as we like to call it. We hung up the dark, methodical kind of gimmicks, and we kind of like just became white meat baby faces with the Ginger Rican Bad Boys, and it was good, and it got over. But there's just something about the gimmick of TFK that it's so different than what everybody else is doing now. And it's been different for 5 years. And I've seen a few groups and a few individuals try to mimic it, and it just doesn't work out because there's something missing from there that I can't, personally put my finger on. So with TFK,
Okay.
it's one of those unique things where, we tried to separate ourselves from it to kind of be our own thing.
Right.
And we've won tag team gold with it, but it's one of those things where inevitably I knew we were going to come back to it, and I'm so glad we did. With the reformation and the revamp, it's one of the most over things in Georgia right now. It's one of the most over things in Alabama right now, and I honestly don't see any way other than kind of mirroring Undertaker and funny story about that here in a second, where Taker went from the Ministry to the American Badass back to the Dead Man. You know, we kind of went from this 3-man hell group essentially to white meat baby faces back to a dark, borderline demonic gimmick. And like I said, the thing with the Undertaker is if you know who Ronnie and Donnie Harris is, right?
Yep.
You know their cousin, or not their cousin, their brother Brian Lee,
Ma- I have a funny story about Brian.
which you know that he is cousins with the Undertaker.
Yep.
So put one and one and one and one together. Like my childhood idol always being Undertaker. It's one of those things where, you know, randomly in a car at 4 o'clock in the morning coming back from a show, it just fucking clicked and I almost ran into a damn power pole. But it was one of those things where I immediately called everybody. I was like, why the fuck didn't you tell me this? You know what I mean? Like it took me 25 years to click. And then from there, like I called Ronnie and Donnie separately. I was like, so when were y'all going to tell me about this? And they're like, we thought you always knew since you were such a big fan of his. I'm like, no. Now I have questions for him. I need to be in contact with him. And funny enough, we went to one of our family reunions up in Tennessee, and he happened to be there, and it was a very good conversation. It wasn't one of those things where I fanboyed out, like I want this autograph, I want this autograph, this, that, and the other. It was one of those things where he just sat me down for 15 minutes, and he gave me some great advice, and you know he told me what worked for him and what didn't work for him. And I was like, okay, cool, awesome. You know, it's just like with Rip and Scott Hall. Like, you know, a lot of people say don't meet your heroes. Don't always believe in that. Like your heroes could be the greatest thing to ever happen to you, unless you're Ric Flair.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. It's you just never know. Everybody has just different experiences.
That's it.
Um, the quick story about Brian, it's actually not Brian. His brother, I talked to. Me and him talked for over 30 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and I met him. I was working at a Toys R Us, and just so happened he was there. And we got to talking, and I told him how big of a fan I was, and we just talked, and I was like, man, I just wish I could meet Brian in person. And like, like I said, his brother was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great conversation, and he even told me before it got out that how Brian was going to do the Undertaker. He said, "You notice how he's hurt?" I was like, "Yeah, I was wondering about that." He's like, "Yeah, because he's about to go up to WWE and do the Undertaker." I'm like,
Yep.
"No fucking way!" And
Yeah.
but so get, I got another question for you, Rip. With your parents being so religious, and your stepfather get showing you wrestling, and you really wanting to be in it, how did you find out how to go about training and everything?
Actually, my avenue went through high school wrestling, Olympic style, Greco, catch as catch can. Um, so long story short, we were finishing up with a wrestling meet. We were rolling up our mats, and there was a company at the time. Totally forget the name, but they were bringing the ring in, and so caught my interest and whatnot. And so I'm like they're half of the group is putting everything with my wrestling team, Lake House Silverhawks, Lake House Pride. Uh, they're getting everything launched up, and then I'm kind of off to the side, looking busy, but watching as they're bringing in the wrestling stuff because in the same gymnasium that Saturday night they were going to have a wrestling event, and so I went up to a random individual and I just started, asking questions and whatnot, and come to find out the individual was a promoter at the time, and he kind of told me like, this is something that, he told me, he said, you got a good look to you, it's just a matter of getting you trained. You got to find a school, and this was like, this before Like kayfabe was still real to me. Like Kane and the Undertaker were blood brothers to me at the age of 16. You know,
Right.
so
Oh shit.
it's something where I did a little Google search, and it turns out that at the time, literally 2 minutes walking distance from my house where I lived at the time was a training facility. So I went to the training facility, asked a couple questions. I'm 17 at this point, and my mom had to come in and sign a waiver form for me to begin training, and it was just going from that point. I went ahead and picked up training, and of course, with my parents being pastors, they haven't always been the most supportive. Like my mom came to my first match, and then recently, back in March, I want to say early this year, she came to another match, and she left immediately after my match. She was trembling, shaking, like her nerves were through the roof. She's like, "You guys are killing each other out there," and I'm like, "Wrestling," like But it's to the point now. It's taken all these years, but my parents really have my. I want to say, the Lord has worked in a way my parents to make them the parents that we've always needed them to be. My relationship with my mother and my father is the best it's ever been. They're the most supportive they've ever been. My mom, always is praying over me. Get there safely. Let me know you made it. Let me know when you leave. Let me know when you get back. Because it is quite a bit of a tool that it takes to drive up to Georgia, and most times I'm driving back right after the show, so I get home at like 4:30 in the morning Sunday. Um, but it genuinely is something where they've kind of come around now, and like she watches all my matches on Facebook Live. Like my grandfather up in Connecticut watches. My dad shows interest. He's not heavy into being on social media and stuff like that.
That's
But if I bring home a new piece of machinery, it definitely is something where he tells me how he's proud of me, and
telling
we're
you.
sticking to it and whatnot. So there is that part.
So, with with what y'all are doing, and the traveling, let me say this part. I was at a show Saturday, and some of the guys, they had like 6 hour rides home from
Mm-hmm.
where they were at, and I always think, man, could I really have done that? Now the driving, I love traveling, but man, after y'all work and do all that, then on top of that, now you have to drive home. Then, if you have a shoot job, hell, maybe you got to get home to get an hour or two of rest before you got to go to your shoot job. What is the thing that keeps you all loving what you do?
Mm.
Let me jump in real quick, Gravo.
Go ahead.
So to paint the picture, this is what a Saturday looks like for Georgia Old School Championship Wrestling. I'm up around 6 o'clock in the morning, packing up the car, getting everything ready. A lot of times I have my son, so I'm getting him ready. I'm making sure everything is figured out. I'm trying to get a couple of things done, run a couple errands real quickly, and then typically I'm on the road by 10:30, 11. It's about a 5.5 hour drive up to the venue, because we don't get there and then the show starts. We get there typically between 3 and 4. The show doesn't start until 7. So
Right.
that's 3 hours of prep, helping set up, do whatever needs to be done, getting promos, getting into gear, pictures taken, doing all this stuff. Now we got to wait for the show to go through. The show typically goes from like 7 to 10. Um, After that part, we got to wait for everybody to leave, get paid, and then typically we'll figure out what we're doing for food, because I still haven't eaten. I refuse to eat before my matches, to then go eat. By the time we figure it out, get out of there, it's maybe 11:30, almost 12 that we're leaving the Waffle House. Waffle House, and then it's time to hit the road. And after being physically assaulted, there's been a couple times recently where me and Dravyn had people looking at us like complete psychopaths, because he's got black face paint all over his face. I've got blood all over my face. I'm trying to convince the cashier that no, he's not doing blackface. He just took his mask off.
Was this the night they were trying to sell me a banana for $2?
Woo.
Yeah.
That,
And
that,
then, I've got blood all over my face. So there's those consistent, conversations of, we're not psychopaths. Well, yes, we are, but we're wrestlers. It's a lot of
right.
questions and whatnot. So then hit the road, and I'm one of those where lately, like the travel back, it took me about 5 hours, 5.5 to get there. It's taking me closer to 7 to get home because of the fact that I'm exhausted, because of the fact that I'm falling asleep. So I'll pull over into a rest area. I'll sleep for like 30 minutes at a time. And then, that typically I'll stop maybe twice and then at least another 2 times to top off on gas or to pee or whatever the case may be. And then, literally you get home and now you got to clunk everything back upstairs because you don't want to leave your stuff in the car. You got to take everything out of your gear bag so it doesn't stink. Let it air out before you wash it. And then at that point, typically, I in the last year or so reconnected my salvation with Jesus. And so my Sunday service is at a 9:30 and 11:30. So at the time at 9:30, they had a 10 o'clock service for a while now. They just switched to 2 services. So it was get home, maybe sleep for about an hour and then get into church. A lot of weekends I have my son, so he's expecting to what we're gonna do, and so it's something that Monday back to work. So it's definitely something where to answer the question, and then I'll hand it over to Dravyn. You really have to have a fire and a passion for this industry. You really have to have a fire. This isn't something. I mean, there's a lot of weekend warriors that they're okay with just doing their local shows and wrestling one time a month. But if you really, really love this business, you really want to get your name out there, you really want to be a champion, you really want to be the main event, you really want to be the marquee, you really want to be that guy on the poster, you're gonna have to pay the price. You're gonna have to pay the toll to shamelessly plug our catchphrase for the team. Um, it's costing. A lot of times you've been hit with chairs. A lot of times you've been slammed on concrete. You've been slammed on gym floors. A lot of times you're covered in blood. A lot of times you smell like death. Um, and it is something where you really have to have that fire within you to keep you going and keep you passionate and keep you looking towards the next booking.
100%. 100%.
Very well. Hot tag.
And kind of work off what his schedule is. Mine's pretty similar. Like I'm up at 6. 9 times out of 10, I always have my stuff packed up and ready the night before, so I can just get up and go. And I'm on the road by 9 a.m. It's like a 5-hour drive for me, so I get there between 1 and 2, and I get there early enough to kind of help with the younger talent because they want ring time, they want some training. So I jump in there and I give them about an hour or 2 of my time, whether it's working psychology, whether it's working spots, whether they're brand new and need to be ran through drills, what have you. So by the time Rip gets there at 4 o'clock, I've already been in the ring 2, sometimes 3 hours, and I'm like Rip. I don't necessarily eat day of shows. It is the worst thing for you, in my opinion. That's one of those days where you just fast until after it's over.
Right.
But like he said, once he's there, we're getting in gimmick, we're cutting promos, we're getting shots, we're doing this, that, the third, and then you got a lot of the younger talent that still come to you as the show's progressing. Like, well, they just did this. What if we did this? Okay, what if you took this out and instead put this here, and here's why. So even while the show's going on, I'm still helping. Rip is still helping. Help these kids get to the next stage. And this is just for one promotion. We still have like 3 or 4 other promotions that we go to, and we do this for all the promotions. And then it's time for our match, and half the time we're like, oh shit, what are we supposed to be doing for our match? And then half the time we're calling it all in the ring, and it's one of those things. My personal opinion that this works better anyway, rather than calling from A to Z in the back. Like, it's good to have a start and a finish, but I've always loved just calling everything in the ring, feel the crowd, feel the emotion, the energy. But to go back to your question, what drives me, dude? From a young age, I lived with family who told me I couldn't do it, that I wasn't good enough. So every time I get on the road, every time I go to a show, every time that I perform, every time that, I have a kid ask for my autograph or wants to buy a shirt or buy a picture or whatever, I'm proving them wrong. And to this day, they always have something to say like, "Oh, you're never going to make it on TV." Okay, cool. Here I am on Roku. Here I am on YouTube TV. Here I am on doing this. Now, well, you're never going to make it anything else. Got told that 3 years ago. We started a podcast. It's been immensely successful to the point that podcast had to be put down, to kind of just pushed to the side to start a new one. So here we are on a second podcast 2 years on this one, and it's always been with that side of the family. You're just never going to be good enough. So my driving force has always been proving people wrong. Like it's good to have like that close knit family of wrestling that's always there to support you, but to me, my haters are my biggest motivation, especially when it's supposed to be your blood.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too that it is amazing how both of y'all are different, but I can feel y'all connection. I can feel how y'all are a team. Y'all have something that just clicks. And with any great team, there's the ebb and flow. One's a big guy, the other one is the technician. Most of your best tag teams are different. Just talking to y'all, I feel like I get the sense of everything with y'all. I One of my favorite tag teams of all time is Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson.
Brainbusters.
The reason being, they were that tag team that could literally never say a word to each other, but knew what the other one was thinking. It was always, the timing was impeccable. You never seen them say anything. Hell, sometimes they wasn't even looking at each other, but knew where to be. And that's what I get the sense of y'all. Y'all have that bond that, again, you can't put your hand, you can't say what it is. You know it's there, but you just can't put your hands on it. And that to me is a great team. And to have your motivation and to have your brother the same way with the same passion, you can't beat that. You just
No.
can't.
No, and to go back to what you were saying, that's not something that just happened overnight. I will say that was a lot of trial and error. But again, it's one of those things where the more you're around them, the more you grow that trust, the more you grow that bond. And once we got to that point, it just, like you said, it just clicked. And it's one of those things where you can't explain. Like right now, if I had a booker want Rip and I to go work a tag team match next weekend, we can go do that, no problem. At the same time, if the next day they need Dark Cords and myself to pull his ass out of retirement and go work a tag team match, same thing there. We have that same camaraderie. And then, if you have something like tomorrow night, they just want, Dark Cords and Rip to work that match, they have that camaraderie. It's just one of those things where it's just the unspoken trust between everybody that we're going to trust each other to be where we need to be and keep everybody safe.
Right. And
You actually you rang a bell for me. Um, Rewinding back to the friction that we were talking about earlier.
All right, run it back.
You rang a bell for me, and this I'll touch on briefly. My friction with the whole change and when Dark hung it up is that I refuse to believe that Dark was done. I still believe that he has plenty left in the tank. And so that was always my gripe and my fight of, yeah, he's done, he's hanging it. No, he's not. No, he's not. And the second part to that, with Dravyn talking about people duplicating, there have been a lot of other teams that have tried to duplicate it, and it's something where we happened organically. A lot of these other teams, it's like, oh, where you wear a mask with a skull on it and I wear a hoodie, we should just be spooky ooky together and take it from there. And that's the reason why it doesn't work. With us, like Draven just said, it did have to take, you know, time to build the trust and camaraderie that we have. But it was something that was never forced. It was something that we all three looked at each other and were like, okay, we can make this work. Now let's do what we need to do to make it work.
Yep.
And I definitely am a firm believer. I'm not suicidal by any means, but if I had a gun to my head and I were to call those two, I know that in a heartbeat they would drop everything, hop in a car, and drive it. I'll drive all the way down to Orlando to save my ass. And that's something where we would do that for each other. Um, and it's something that happened organically. Was there a certain amount of effort that had to be put into getting to know each other and bonding and figuring out who likes what moves and the kind of like the courtship. What do you do? What do I do? What do you do? Now how can we put this together and
Mhm.
really make it something that's totally different from everybody else?
Mhm.
And so that definitely is something that truly helps to further set us apart from the other teams out there.
Yeah, and kind of piggyback off what you said, the way the group came together, all three of us worked singles. We were all singles guys, and we all just had this idea of what if we came together. We didn't try to steal each other's stuff. We didn't try to override each other. We just took the best parts of each of us and kind of integrated into what it is today. Like for example, you and Dark Cord started with the mask. I never wore a mask. I went with the prototypical biker gimmick for a few years. You know what I mean? And then once you know I started feeling like the odd man out. Maybe I need to revamp my character because at the time it was just Dravyn Grimes. I didn't have a moniker. I didn't have a gimmick. I was basically like a John Moxley, just without bleeding everywhere. So, I was like, maybe I need to find me a mask. Okay, how can we incorporate the mask into the gimmick itself of the group? And when we came up with Forbidden Kingdom, what do the kings have? They have a crown. The crown represents their power, represents all that. And with us, our crowns became our mask. To where obviously, we're no strangers to mask. So we took that and we ran with that, and it just kept evolving over the years. Dark Core's kind of like kept with the OG thing, which worked for him. Like that's just how his gimmick was.
Right.
Whereas with Rip, he started with one look. He tried another look. It didn't work for him, so he went back to an older look, and it worked for him. As with me, I'm always trying to find ways to stand out and be different. Where, starting this, I'm not ashamed to say it, I had a fucking Tokyo Ghoul mask starting out, right? And then once I saw that was over, okay, this is starting to get a little stale because everybody's starting to like not care as much. How can I fix that? What can I do to change that? Okay, let's find a storyline to where I wear a mask now. Why do I wear the mask? Well, this happened. Okay, so we did that for a while, and then once I'm gonna be honest, once that mask got here, I was like, fuck, I can't work in that damn thing. We need to heal my ass up fairly quickly and give me a reason to take the mask back off. And then when that happened, and that's around the time I had some family issues, so I needed to step away. That was also about the time that Dark Cord was like, I'm ready to hang it up. So at the same time, that was when Rip was kind of like bearing the flag on his own for a little bit until I could come back. And that was when we had the conversation about, do we want to continue with TFK, or do we want to like leave that legacy the way it is and like kind of go off on our own thing? And we tried it. We did the Ginger Rican Bad Boys, like I said, and it got over, and it was fun for what it was. But I don't know how Rip feels about it, but I always felt more forced and more uncomfortable doing that gimmick to where I was like, what if we did bring this back? But what if we evolved it some? Like get new gear, a new look, a new attitude, new music, new everything. And from there, we started like implicating a little things here and there in the Ginger Rican thing until we found a great storyline to where it made sense for us to go back to our dark side. And when we did that, we also had Psycho and Lady J come on. And he's still young in the business, and he needs a good ride along, and he soaks up so much like a sponge, dude. Like, I can't say enough good things about him. He listens to you more than anything. If he fucks up on something, he's always there to, like, all right, tell me how to fix it. So with a guy like that who will absorb your knowledge like a sponge, with two veterans that's been doing this combined about 40 years, it just works out. Like, now we have Rip, who is more or less the mouthpiece. We have Psycho, who is now our workhorse of the group. And you got me, who's the big guy who comes in for the hot tag now, because the other guy that had a hot tag wants to sit there looking like a bitch. Fuck you too. Love you. So, yeah. It's just one of those things where everything just grew organically.
So, something that
we can't forget Lady J, because that girl right there is the queen of the group.
Oh, that's a bad bitch.
She is one of the biggest attractions of the group.
Oh yes, 100%.
Lady J. She's that girl right there has so much freaking potential. Mm-hmm. And watching her every single show come more and more out of her shell is been something where I like. It's kind of something where Dravyn has taken Psycho and I've taken Lady J, and it's like,
yeah,
when you're out there,
it's pretty accurate.
Try this, try that, try the other, and you just see her eyes, just kind of like the excitement in her eyes, and then she goes out there and she's got the crowd freaking losing their damn minds, hyping them up for it, because she doesn't wrestle just yet. So she's kind of more in a manager role type of thing, but it's literally like, Lady J and her three henchmen, and she's gonna send us out there to freaking just eat everybody,
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I really noticed too, that y'all have the drive, and I think most wrestlers have this. There's some that don't, but most wrestlers want to see the younger guys and girls succeed. You're doing what I love to call, from my younger days, you're leaving the business better than you found it.
Yes.
And as a wrestling fan, I don't think that wrestling fans really understand the drive and what y'all really put into this business to make us happy, to make us forget about our everyday lives. And I always want to be very thankful and always be humble when I have guests on, because again, no matter what y'all do, y'all are giving most times it's 110% to just put a smile on a fan's face, to make that little kid hate you so much that when they grow up, they are influenced by you. And you all deserve thanks, praise for what you do for the business. And fans can't say it enough, so I'm going to say it for them. Thank both of y'all. Thank all of y'all for doing what you do, and continue success. And anytime y'all want to be on my show, y'all more than welcome.
We appreciate that. But no, thank you. If it wasn't for fans like you or our great fans in Georgia and Alabama and Florida, we wouldn't have the audience to do this for. This is before Rip and I met, but I tried doing a couple shows during the COVID era where we just recorded in an empty gym and just try to put it on YouTube, and it just wasn't the same. Like, you got to have the fans there.
100%.
Yeah, COVID was a nightmare. And I mean, I'll piggyback off of that. There's times where, you hit the curtain and the crowd is just dead, and it's something where your goal at that point by the end of the match is to pop them, to get them to react, to get them to because one of the biggest things that is very defeating as a pro wrestler is when you get to the back of when you get back and you've done your match, and me and Draven or whatever will come to them, or how's the crowd? Oh man, they're freaking dead, and it's defeating. It really is, because the fact that your whole purpose is to entertain them, your
Mm.
whole purpose is to get them off their chairs. Your whole purpose is to get them to suspend their disbelief. And for a couple of hours, they paid hard, hard good money, and for a couple of hours, like you said, to be able to escape from their day-to-day realities. And so when you see a match and it's like, this match is dead, they're not getting any reactions, it genuinely is something where it adds the pressure to really go out there and put on a freaking banger. And when you've done everything you can and they still are in the same position, it definitely is a feeling of failure. It definitely is a feeling of discouragement. Because of the fact that the whole mission was to get them to yay or boo or whatever. And when that is not successful, it's definitely something that can be very defeating, and it makes you think, makes you go back and look in the mirror and rewatch the match and see what you could have done better, and see, and it all ties into the fire of it. But it definitely is something where, piggybacking off of what Draven said, without, you know, fans like yourself that, get to the point where you're so invested in the business that you want to, come behind the curtain for a moment and have a conversation with us about who we really are. There's only so much time we have per fan per show. But to be able to sit down and give those fans an opportunity to have a sit down with Rip and Draven, and hear Dark Chords coughing in the background, you know, um, it definitely is something that it's a treat for them. So we're thankful to you, and in the same way, it's an honor and it's a pleasure for you to have us on your platform.
Guys, this has been great. Um, Even throughout, and I think it's honestly a little sign too, because some of my best interviews have started off rough like this, but I really enjoyed the conversation. Um, y- Man, I definitely got to have y'all back. I got something in mind that I think y'all may like to do. We're gonna have to talk about it, because your energy is just, is so good, and again, some interviews you can go through the interview and you're just sitting there like, okay, okay, oh, what time is it? Okay, okay. Y'all y'all are fun. Y'all have so much good knowledge, and I can, again, y'all love the business. There's no doubt. Your love for the business just shines through. And with the weekend I had of wrestling and stuff, it is always an honor to have people who really love the business, and you can tell it. And again, y'all made me a fan of y'all, just being able to hear y'all for y'all talking, and y- you do your jobs well, even if you're not trying to now.
Oh, we appreciate it. We really do.
Guys, girls,
Then maybe we can do something where we have Dark Chords and we have Draven Grimes and Ripper Weeze, and we can have Lady J and Psycho on as well. I know Lady J and Psycho can shoot together. I know Dark Chords and Draven Grimes can shoot together, and I'll be over here in Orlando, but definitely maybe we can do something in the future that we have all five of us on, and we can all really, put some faces to the actual entirety of the group, and be able to hear everybody's stories. Me and Draven will do a lot less talking on that one to give some shine to the other ones. But it's always important that we all, as the entirety of the group, that we all get our fair share of the blood, sweat, and tears we put into this.
man, I love it. We definitely will planning on doing it. Guys, girls, thank y'all so much for joining me today. Um, Again, another amazing interview. Um, y'all know what I'm gonna say. I say it all the time, and I mean it from my heart. Go support your local indie promotion. The indies are the bloodline of wrestling. Do not care what anyone else says. It is the truth. WWE, AEW, any other big companies would not be where they are without the independent circuit and these guys and girls busting their ass to entertain us, show some love and respect, and give back. Because, again, I always say this, I'm not saying that the indies are better than WWE, AEW. I'm not saying AEW, the indies, or AEW or WWE are better than indies. What I'm saying is you get a total different feel, and it's so more personal because we are so closer to the guys and girls. We get to talk to them. We get to buy their merch. We gain a bond that you can't gain with the WWE performers. So please do that. With that being said, I am Professor Bear. This has been a Bear's Thought, and we will catch y'all around the campfire very, very soon. Y'all take care.